Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Hot Rod Bob, and you've got Gas, the morning edition, brought to you by Service Tech Equipment in Simi Valley, California, with all the service equipment you need for that shop you've got. Hey, every once in a while you get boxed in. You feel like you're in a box. And, well, the biggest box that I know of, the most popular box that I know of, is the Volkswagen bus or van or there's so many different names for this vehicle. Well, for example, let's get back into the history and then we'll talk about what they were and some of how they came about. Now, after World War II, Volkswagen began production of the Beetle, but it wasn't quite enough. And one of the things their dealer in Switzerland said, I believe it was Switzerland, was we need something for the working people, the people that have small businesses. So in 1947, one of the dealers, and I'll get into his name in just a little bit, came up with a design for a working van using the same basic combination of power plant, transmissions, and so forth from the Beetle. So you think Chrysler had it with the K cars using the same platform on multiple vehicles. Volkswagen did a whole lot better than that, guys. They used the same basic platform on almost everything they produced until they started making water-cooled cars. All right, so let's go back and take a look at this. So the first VW vans were introduced in 1950. There was a 3-year development process that included some aerodynamic changes that were necessary. Now, I know the bus is not aerodynamic. It is a guaranteed brick going down the highway, and it is great for side winds because it'll take you places you didn't plan on going. But it is better than the original concept was. Now, let's take a look at some of the names, or if you're listening to this, let's listen to some of the names that came out. All right, names that have been associated with the Volkswagen vans and buses were the Eurovan, the Microbus, the Westphalia Camper, the Panel Van, no windows on the sides, except for the doors, the Combi in the U.S., the Samba, it's a window van with a rollback roof, pickup trucks, they got a pickup version of crew cab and a single cab, the Westie, short for Westphalia, the Multivan, the Weekender, I remember her. Oh, it's another story. Anyway, the Splitty, because of the split front window. The 11 window, the 13 window, the 15 window, the 21 window, the 23 window, the Bread Loaf, Bay Window, Vanagon, VW Bus, the Bully. And the list of countries that have come up with names during those years is just extraordinary. Now, the vehicle in all its facets has had a sympathetic following since its inception and has become a counterculture symbol for many generations. The utilitarian shape has made it suitable for a whole bunch of different things, from surfing to skiing to biking to you name it. It'll fit because the seats come out and you can put just about anything in there as long as you can get it past the engine if you're going from the back or from the side. No problem. You can do it. Now, the Volkswagen Type 2 van, as I said, was introduced in 1950, and it was the second production line of vehicles introduced by Volkswagen. Now, the first model was the Type 1 Beetle that we all know and love. Well, most of us do anyway. The idea for the Type 2 came from a Dutch, I'm sorry, not Sweden or Switzerland, but a Dutch VW importer. Because you got to remember, at that point in time, Volkswagen was not big enough to handle their own importation. And in the U.S., it was Max Hoffman. In Dutch, or the Dutch importer was Ben Pond, who created the design in 1947. Yes, he developed the design. He submitted the first VW bus design. Volkswagen ran with it, improved it, and moved on from there. As I said, many aerodynamic shortcomings from his design were resolved in a wind tunnel, believe it or not. They put the thing in a wind tunnel to see what it would do. It backed up. Wind pushed it. Never mind. Anyway, the tunnel was at the Technical University of Braunschweig, and 3 years later, after a lot of development and work, the Type 2 began leaving the Wolfsburg factory. Now, the Type 2 was produced from March 8th, 1950 through 2002 in Germany and other places as well, with many variations along the way. There were versions of the Type 2 such as the T1, the T2, and the T3. Now, if you think that's confusing, wait till I confuse you further. This is where things get confusing for everybody on these cars. All right, the Type 2 T1 was produced from 1950 through 1967 and is the one that is most endeared with by collectors today and enthusiasts. The Type 2 T2, which began production in 1968 and continued in production until 1979, was the refined, upgraded model. Production in Mexico continued, though, from 1980 on, and in Brazil through 1996. Versions produced prior to 71 are called T2As, while those produced after 72 are labeled T2B. The Type 2 T3 was introduced in 1979 and produced through 1990 in Germany. There are many exceptions, and the rules really don't hold, but I'll tell you what, it's cool anyway. The Volkswagen van, something we want. Now, yeah, you do want. I'll tell you what, if you're looking for an investment, I don't know how much they're going to climb in the future, but the average value of a VW van at this point in time is staggering. All right, based on auction sales of a number over the last few years, and this is for 1966. I mean, it varies from year to year, but I picked 1966 as kind of right in the middle there, and it was the first generation, the T21. Yeah, it's something like that. Anyway, in perfect condition, they have sold for as high as $179,000. The average selling price is $91,000, and that's taking all conditions combined. An excellent one can set you back between $49,000 and $82,000. A good condition one that you're still going to have to work on, $32,000 to $49,000. A fair condition, one that needs a complete restoration, $12,000 to $32,000. The lowest recorded sale of a 1966 over the past 5 years has been $12,000. Now put this in perspective. When they were new, they were a $2,000 vehicle. If you bought one of these and you hung on to it in good shape, ooh, baby, you got yourself a house payment, or down payment anyway. But there's more to the VWs than just that. I mean, that van was kind of cool. There were variations, and we said, multi-windows. There were doors on both sides. Morning, Don Baldessaroni. How you doing today? Phil Hoffman, Mr. NHRA. Now, in 1962, they still used the basic Beetle 1200cc. They called it. It was 1192cc, air-cooled flat four-cylinder motor with a whole 30 horsepower. That's right. That was really a speed demon. If you missed a shift, the pedestrians would pass you in the crosswalk. And what helped slow the Volkswagen van down is they used reduction gears. So the drive axles came out of the transaxle, just like the Beetle would, but then went to a set of reduction gears in a box that went down to the wheels. So this gave the van a little bit more acceleration, which it needed because it was heavier than the Beetle, and it was a brick or a loaf of bread. So it wasn't really aerodynamic, and it was hard to move. So the reduction gears helped it going. The problem was, in the U.S. market, those reduction gears created a problem because your engine was revving so high to try and keep up with traffic that the Volkswagen vans just didn't quite do the thing. Well, the Westphalia camper came out, and this was a nice variation on the van, the box, because these were something that people could get into and travel with a family. And I know a family, as a matter of fact, Pete Millar's family, the famous artist. He and his 3 girls and Ora May traveled all over Europe in a Volkswagen van. And a lot of people did. A lot of young people would do that as well. And I knew of a person who bought his on a European delivery. It was a U.S. spec vehicle, arranged a European delivery, picked it up at the factory or the factory's sales point in Germany, and drove all over Europe for a summer, and then part of the purchase price included shipping it back to the States. So he got a great, had a great vehicle, traveled all over Europe, saw some great sights, and then shipped it back in time for the end of summer and going back to school. Now, the Westphalia was the vehicle of choice. It had the pop-up roof. It could be, basically, it was a camper. It was a small little motorhome, shrunk. Well, they started producing them in 1951. So within a year of starting a production of the vans, they saw the need and the market for a camper, and the Westphalia was created. About 1,000 camper box conversions were done, and in 1958, they started getting really popular. So it started out kind of slow and then moved its way up as people found out more about it. Now, there are special model option packages with the Westie, or the Westphalia, and they just are too complicated to talk about, but they're there. And that included the SO34, which was a white laminated interior, while the SO35 was a finished wood interior. I mean, you had so many choices. It was a mini motorhome. All right, the Volkswagen Type 2 T1 was the first generation, and it had a split window. And you got to remember, the first generations all had split front windows. Some had what was called safari windows that would actually move out. They were on a hinge at the top, and you could move them out and get some air circulation in the vehicle. That was one of the downfalls of that vehicle, is it was a box, and the air circulation wasn't the greatest. Now, the back windows, if you had all the windows, would pop open, or had an option for popping open. So you opened up the front windshield, the air would flow through and go out the back and keep you relatively cool in those hot days. Air conditioning was not thought of and was not even an option anywhere for a Westie. Now, you think about it for a second. The horsepower was 36. Putting an air conditioner on a vehicle with 36 horsepower, and it took 5 horsepower to run the air conditioner, you couldn't get out of your own way if you had to. As a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons the Volkswagens never had air conditioning from the factory. The Beetles. It wasn't until they went to air-cooled engines that air conditioning became prevalent. Hi, Kim Gady, watching us right now. All right, so after 1956, the vehicles were produced in Hanover. Before that, they were produced in Wolfsburg. Now, versions created until 55 are known as the T1A. I'm trying to clarify this for you. The versions are often called the barn door versions because they had a real large rear engine cover. Barn door. So actually the back window, the engine cover, big barn door. All right. From 55 through 63, the version had a smaller engine cover. They went from 16 down to 15-inch wheels. The T1C was produced from 1963 until 67, and these variations had a wider rear door. So the rear door became wider. All right, sorry about that. The standard bus had 11 windows. The bus. Again, there's different variations. The deluxe model had 15 windows. The sunroof deluxe versions had 8 skylight windows and are known as 23-window vehicles. A 13-window and 21-window version were produced starting in 1963. The Type 2 T1 was powered by an air-cooled 4-cylinder engine. They were all powered by air-cooled 4-cylinder engines until they came up with a water-cooled motor, which was much, much later on. All right, this engine made noise and fumes nearly every time it started up. Non-existent for the driver and front passenger were fumes because, well, they were in the back of the vehicle. It was a 1.2-liter unit and initially had only 25 horsepower. Oh, I've had go-karts with more horsepower than that. Now, it was capable of carrying the microbus at very low highway speeds. Getting up to speed, though, that took a long time. You would not get a rapid acceleration ticket in a Volkswagen bus. No way, no how. In 1955, they modified the engine to bring it up to 36 horsepower. Later, 40 horsepower. In 1959, the 40 horsepower unit proved to be unreliable. So the factory issued a recall and replaced them with a whole different design 40 horsepower engine. Now, I'm not sure what the issue was, but this is what the factory is saying. The T1 was produced in Germany until 1967, Brazil until 1975. The T1.5 was produced in Brazil from 1975 till 1996. So they were a little slow in starting up their bus production, but they kept the early first generation bus in production through 1996. All right, the Type 2 T2, which was a total redesign of the vehicle, was the second generation, and it was introduced in 1968 for the U.S. market. Stayed in production in Germany until 1979, so 68 to 79, an 11-year run. Mexico began production of the T2 in 1980, and Brazil 1996. Type 2 vehicles produced, or Type 2 T2s, were produced before 1971, are known as T2As, with those produced after 1972 as T2Bs. Okay, VW vans. They're cool. I don't care which model and what history you want. They're there. There was the Eurovan, the T4. There was so many different. And there was word or rumor a couple of years ago that a retro-looking van was going to be coming back out again as an electric vehicle. Morning, Johnny Martinez, Steve Brown, and Larry Oriel. How are you today? Well, will the electric van come back to market? Or come to market? With everyone switching to electric power of late and saying they're going to, and states like California and New Jersey demanding that production of gasoline-powered vehicles for their state is eliminated by 2035. We're going to see a whole host of electric vehicles, all different kinds. They may be fun. Right now, when we have a Tesla coming to the drags, we see them running as quick as Dodge Challengers and Dodge Challenger Hellcats. They're running low 7-second ETs in the 8th mile. And not a sound other than the swish of the engine going, or the motor going down the track. So, will Volkswagen bring the van back as an electric vehicle? I don't know. Is it possible? You bet. Will they do it? Well, the rumor is that they're going to. They've also stated that they are planning to switch their whole lineup to electric. Could we see an electric van? I can see it now. Reverbs in the back. The windows lighting up in colors as you go down the road going whoosh. No more sound of that Volkswagen motor. No more oil leaks. No more adjusting the valves every 3,000 miles and retorquing the cylinder head at the same time. The electric Volkswagen. I bet you there was groups in the 60s that sung about those. The Electric Light Orchestra. Okay, enough of my diversion here. Thanks for tuning into GAAS. Hey, you know what? Keep an eye out for the latest edition of Talking About Cars. Randy Kerdoon's the main host. I'm his co-host. And we've got a special guest tomorrow. And it'll be out. The whole interview will be out by Thursday or Friday. And I can't tell you who this fluffy person is that we're going to be talking to. But he's a Volkswagen expert. And he has got tons of vans. But I can't tell you who he is. You just got to watch. Check it out. iTunes, Facebook. We're going to have it everywhere. I can't tell you who this guy is. But he's got a lot of Volkswagen vans. And he's funny. And can't tell you how fluffy he really is. But we'll find out. Can't tell you. It's a secret. Okay? But watch out for Talking About Cars on iTunes, and then we'll get the video version out as soon as we can on Talking About Cars, Two Tired Guys Productions on YouTube. I'm Hot Rod Bob. You've got GAAS, the morning edition, brought to you by Service Tech Equipment. Thanks for tuning in to GAAS, the Great American Auto Scene. Your award... Excuse me. I got all choked up thinking about myself. The award-winning podcast. Take care now.